Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to View with Mike G, the show of life, the show of mezcal, the show of textiles, marriage, collaboration, podcast, and so much more. Today, we sit down with the amazing Gabriel Gilberto Velazquez Zazueta of El Buho, of Tuyo, an artist, an artisan, a man who thinks about all things mezcal, but all things about creativity. We recently got to work with him on an El Buho launch. Amazing mezcal from Santiago Matatlan here in Austin, Texas. There is this concept of territorialism in mezcal. Does Mexico own it? Does the United States own it? And that's not really the question. The question is, how can we do this together? And this is something Gabriel and I sit down and chat and dive into. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this chat with Gabriel.
Coming from a family in Mexico that I was able to, we travel a lot, and not because it was just let's go on vacations. It was the duty of going and visiting my mom's family in the north part of Mexico, us living in Mexico City. So that on its own opened the possibility to just a wider net of colors, textures, stories, you name it, it happened. My grandfather was a charro, so the charreria and charreria is too fancy. He had a horse and we went out in a horse. He dressed up sometimes fancier. I never did that. I was more just going out and, going up the mountain in Mexico City. That sounds crazy, but they still have them. It was another time still. Like there was little towns inside the city in so many ways, as many other bigger cities start just swallowing the culture into a bigger one single-sided thing. But art was always around. My dad is a engineer, so I consider that a other kind of practical artist. Mm-hmm. We like it too. My house was built for us. We didn't buy something pre-done. Funny enough, things that you start noticing when you're older, like why all my windows in my house are made out of 90-degree angle and painted with everything was custom. Yeah. So if you go and think about that right now, like that was the initial thought of everything that I do.
It's incredible. When it comes to artists, let's say, is there a particular period that you prefer stylistically, whether it's the Romantic period or Cubism or any of those?
I have two very important things that happen in my life. I am dyslexic, for sure, and so reading came late. And the only fastest, best way for me to understand things was visually. So I couldn't, even if I wanted to, I couldn't read it. Yeah. And I couldn't understand it well. So since little, you force yourself to find a way to understand the world that is in front of you. Mm-hmm. And pictures was one. And then cooking,
Oh, really?
At home, that was something that always was very prominent. My dad, my mom, all my mom's family, all my dad's family, there was always some kind of ritual on cooking. So cutting and doing and touching and textures. So since I have memory, I wanted to be a painter or sculptor. Yeah. Time passed by, and that became, the typical fight in your house of like, well, you're not gonna do anything with that. So why are you going to be an artist, especially in Mexico, like that kind of careers of, unless you come from a very, 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 very rich family and they're like, of course you want to be a painter, we will support you, and you're in the, like that shit is not going to fly. So it was okay. If it's not design, if it's not art, what else is there? So there was product design, there was industrial design, there was graphic design. All of this kind of new. Like I'm 42.
Yeah.
So it was the beginning of a lot of these careers to get recognized as something that you are a licenciado. You have your 4-year degree on graphic. What are you doing? Like you're gonna work in a newspaper? What is gonna happen? Like all that kind of thing was still shifting. None of the digital. I still learn. Probably most of my work was silkscreen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and black and white photography.
Wow!
So that will tell you the period of work that I enjoy the most. And until now, I think that's the simplicity of silkscreen, the understanding of layers, the being able to simplify thoughts into more understandable graphics concepts in itself. So that will be the graphic part of it. I was lucky to be part of like the first generation of the university that I choose to study. Is in Mexico City. It's Unitec. Nothing fancy. It's like a technical university.
Yeah.
It's still private, but not the expensive private stories that you will hear from like bigger universities in Mexico that are very, very expensive. This was just working man university. I pay it making silkscreen, basically cool. T-shirts and bags, and dad pay for it. A lot of hustle.
You obviously a hustler, and all of the art, the content that you've put out it's such a wide swath of styles and different industries and stuff. I am curious in terms of the other side, because I feel like they go hand in hand. But were you ever a musician? Did you ever play anything of that nature?
Not necessarily. I consider myself somebody that has a good ear. I will play the piano. Again, dyslexia didn't help, so you have to read it, and I will play. I will memorize everything by ear and kind of pass the 1 or 2 or 3 exams that they will make you. So that was interesting.
Yeah. I think of inspiration a lot, and we'll talk about kind of what inspires you now in COVID times. But just generally speaking, is it music? Is it movies? Do you have a medium that truly brings you to the place where you can create?
You know what? It's funny that you mentioned some of these thoughts. It's like the States has a different kind of socializing. Mm-hmm. That's clear to me. And I come from a house that is hyper social. So my mom will arrange and help and do and make every single party for anybody in the neighborhood. My house was big enough to have a big first floor that it was empty, kind of like bodega type parking lot. So it was the first floor is empty, and so we could feed 200 people down there.
Wow!
It's like a big open space. With that comes everything that you will think of production. So from the invites to arranging to making the things nice to the food to the music. So and dancing has been a prevalence on my life. From the north side of Mexico with all the norteños, like every single party will be just live music. So that's what I'm saying. Socializing in the States is slightly different. Over there is a massive everybody on board ordeal. In here, like, well, I invite you to my party. I do everything. You come and you come, you eat, and you leave.
Yeah.
Over there, like you come early because we need to get this done, and then you stay late because you're gonna wash dishes with me. So it's a different communion. But communion with, I will say, the artistic side of it has a lot to do with the communion and the interaction that you have throughout the full event.
Yeah, no, it's certainly different. One of the things that is so admirable about agave community, for one, is that we all kind of welcome each other under one passion. It doesn't matter where we're from, and it doesn't matter what our backgrounds are, but we all kind of come together again. I want to touch on one other thing before we dive into mezcal and how probably it's changed both of our lives profoundly. But the move to the States, this was, if I recall, you came to teach
In the U.S., is that why you first came in?
To the States through a apprenticeship that Fabric Workshop and Museum in Philadelphia had. They no longer, I think, offer the same apprenticeship, but it was something so amazing. They pay for your housing.
Oh, wow.
Period. There was a 3-month and up to almost 6 months of apprenticeship. I was able to work in the museum 9 to 5. And the give back was that you can, you're going to develop a print silk screen. Again, you will develop a print in fabric. That's one of the educational side of that museum. But the other side that they have is like, it is a art institution with a very, very heavyweight lineage of amazing artists. So Teresita Fernandez, Do Hosun, like you just go through the names of the people that they have done collaborations, and it's like, blue chip galleries in Chelsea right now. That kind of very top artistry. But with that, I came to the States, and that was 2000.
Real quick, was that right after you completed work at the university?
I had probably like a year with my graphic design studio in Mexico City.
Okay.
I had the graphic design studio, since the beginning of the career.
I see.
It was more of a print workshop. So silkscreen, textiles, promotionals, all that kind of stuff that is easy to produce when you're not knowing yet what to do.
Yeah. Is it easy to leave? Even though this program with textile and screen printing and stuff sounds incredible in the States, did you have to spend a lot of time thinking about that? Not
really, because the thing is, what you hear Mexico City right now being the hottest spot of art and things and amazing, that was not what it was in front of me in 2004. It was beginning. There was some obvious changes. There was some obvious art happening, and there has been art happening forever. But again, it was a very specific industry. The same way that is in the States. Over here it's just a little bit, a tiny bit more broad on how it's observed. But in Mexico City, galleries where we like. You don't have a Chelsea area like you have here. Right. The museums are impressive. All the museums in Mexico City, the buildings are ginormous. It's mostly very, very well curated. There's a lot of studies you can go to study, museography and become part of this whole thing. But the art scene wasn't what it is here at that point. So I come to the States, I'm working and making art exclusively for 6 months, and I was like, what am I doing back there?
Yeah.
Like this is not what, like, and I was doing fine, nonetheless, I observe and understand the privilege that I have in work, like the social class that I was belonged to for generations, and the possibilities of study that I had. So I was a middle class, comfortable middle class in Mexico in the 2000s, and that is really nice. It was really there was no need to run away, but I couldn't see the future that I had here at that moment. Yeah,
I see.
I can probably see it now.
Yeah, Well, I mean, 16 years later?
Yeah,
things are kind of different. So there was a 6-month program. For you to stay, what kind of stipulations are there, or at that time, to stay in the States?
I sent slides. And I took them with my camera. I did not have anything professional. I took them outside with the sun, just making noise. I was one of those kids that was on a coffee shop 7 days a week after school, drawing and making watercolors and painting and hustling and selling them and anything. It was one of those things. So that was my entry pass for the Fabric Workshop Museum. I believe I was the first Mexican that they have accepted in the program. I was adopted immediately by a few of the ladies that run the program. I came in with $100 in my wallet, and I drank them probably a week before, or the program really started. So that was that, and it was very interesting just to, the thing is, when you come from a country that you live in a way that is never opulence. It was comfortable, but it was never opulence. There was always a certain grade of like, oof, we're tight, but never to the way that it will choke you. So being tight in the States means very different to being tight in Mexico City, especially if you have 3 or 4 ladies taking care of you in such a motherly way, because they were like, how you came here with no money, what are you gonna do? And I was like, fine, like I'm gonna figure it out. I end up working in a catering company 3 days a week and making more money than I have ever made, because it's cash, and it's $300 a night, and end of the month you have $1,200 that I didn't see that in Mexico in any way or point. But it was just an evolution of, I think I have very good luck. That is the one thing that I have to admit in many things. I'm a good person. I do good things, and therefore I don't think my karma has much stain, and that works fine.
Yeah, I like that you say that, because our opportunity to help in this time, more than any other time I've experienced in my life, is massive. And I feel like for all the good that you do, it may, you may think it comes back into fortune for you, but I think luck is a really good term for it, because I think being in the right place in the right time, I think that's karmic as well. A lot of people would leave it to chance, but I think it's a life paved in doing good for others,
Just being able to help them, you're saying something interesting, like buying a $60 painting. It's not like you're buying $500, $600, $3,000. No, $60. That $60 will make that difference for your friend that night. Yeah. He's not going to be thinking like, oh man, maybe that will be the difference of paying the rent in full or not. A few of those. Or, it will be like, okay, this is something that is working. I can maintain, making smaller paintings and make a few of them, and then it will, like, just giving somebody else hope, man, is right now, I see it is pretty,
it's vital.
It's pretty good,
You have to do that. So the chapter, because I think you met your wife in Philly, is that right? And in the winds of young love and all of that, you both decided to move to New York. I don't even have to ask why now, knowing your background in art and talking about Chelsea and stuff. So getting into New York, the both of you, was that what you expected?
No, I got here first.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So the plan was going back to Philly, because that's where I built, in very little time, but that's where I built friendships, and that's what I have the support system that I was done. It's gonna be the beginning of this new life. That was the fabric workshop, and Sabrina says that I'm the million idea man in the mornings, and I have a few millions of those ideas for the fabric workshop to revolutionize and become a bigger institution and all that kind of jazz. But that didn't happen. So I go back to Mexico, and this is early 2004, 5. In 2005, and I start sending. Oh, by the way, internet as we know it wasn't that. So there's no like finding a job right away through LinkedIn or things like that. That didn't exist. So Craigslist from New York, Pennsylvania, and Boston were my best friends. Me from Mexico City, typing, finding creative jobs, and I was very lucky again to find somebody in New York, in Brooklyn, and it was a newer company called Neighborhoods. I don't know if they're still around. And a very gentle, very nice man, Michael Desires, gave me the opportunity to come. And he did kind of the same apprenticeship that the fabric workshop, because that's how I pitched it. Like, if you pay for my rent, I work for free.
Nice.
Because I the thing is, I didn't have the legal status to just come and work. That doesn't work. Like, that is not how it works. And so it has to be some sort of like work study situation. So I came in, and by probably month 2, I was the production manager of the facility, because, you know, I knew my thing or two around production and printing and design and all that kind of stuff. I recruited another 5 Mexicans, and you know, that worked better. And then, you know, things just evolved through that. I was still on the work study situation, so it wasn't yet there. You know, Sabrina was part of my life. Her family embraced me in a way that I have never felt before. So the fact that I'm here is because my family here, my Sabrina's family here, the Lazar family here, was everything and anything but inclusive.
Yeah.
Everything that I needed. You know, I will receive a box of tuna and soups, and, you know, anything that he was being able to send through a box. I will receive, you know, linens and pillowcases and like dumb shit that you never think about it, but it's like, you don't have them. So you need to make house somehow. And this family made it possible, to the point that, you know, when we were starting looking for lawyers, I was looking for lawyers, because like, this is it. I'm staying here some way or form. I'm not going to do the stupid thing of overstaying my visa. That is not who I am. Like, and I don't have the necessity for that. I was able to go, if I needed to, I was probably able to go back and forward a few times, but I didn't want to do that either. Like, why playing that dumb game of like, just do your homework and figure it out? And that's what it took. You know, we went through, it was the 3rd month that I was in the States, and I was like, we need to figure out what needs to happen. And, you know, in that point, you know, just trying to figure out what legally you can do is a nightmare. Because you have no idea. And then, you know, through the help with my father-in-law, Claude, so like, there's 3 lawyers that I have, you know, somebody tell me that you can talk. So I talked to the 3, we find one, and he sponsored me.
Oh, wow.
Sabrina didn't have the money to sponsor me. So we got married, and the sponsor was through my father-in-law, that then got audited a month later after we got married. That's how our system works. You know, like,
what a lovely.
You're gonna help somebody. Let's see if you have some dirt. You know, hopefully, and nothing less. You know, he didn't have absolutely anything to be fear around, but, you know, it was just interesting that it's like, you're sponsoring somebody that is in love with your daughter, and then you get hit with like a little taxman visit just to see if you were real.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
It's a strange thing. It's always kind of like, it's got to be good and bad. It has to be bittersweet. It can't just be sweet, right? Which is an interesting thing, because of course things can be pure and they can be filled with love and they can be happy, you know. But speaking of how important this relationship and the marriage has been to you, you know, there's 2 distinct projects that I know of you both working on together. You've got Tuyo, and then you have the Hey Hey Agave.
Yeah.
You know, as a strong, probably opinionated artist, how does that dynamic work, collaborating with the person that you're married to?
Well, Sabrina is the boss. That's a simple answer. I don't need to look too much into it. We collaborate very well. We headbutt strongly and then resolve as anything else that it has to happen. She has the most amazing quality of organization and research. Sabrina should be a deep dive researcher in any field. It doesn't really matter. She works for a artist for the last probably 8 years, creating all kinds of. Her work is the studio manager of this specific artist, but they do very math-oriented work. So quilting, but with the spreadsheets of location and random numbers. Like it's almost like a math scientist stuff.
Yeah.
When you see it in paper, like you see these spreadsheets of numbers that allows the location of each of the pieces, and if it turns in certain amount of angles, if it is going to be headbutting with another piece. Like it's very, very strange. But what I'm trying to say is that she has that kind of brain.
I see.
She is good organizing and good brainstorming. So when I'm able to just open the floats and all the ideas comes out, she is my filter in many ways of what works and what doesn't. But the other way around, I help her to get unstuck when she is like, this is the only way. And I'm like, there's no way that this is the only way. Like there's at least another 5 ways of doing something like this.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get, and just balance is pure balance. She has a background on sculpture, fine art, and she is probably one of the most amazing persons that I know with volume. You can understand volume in a very specific way, and that works in everything that we do, especially product design wise. How this is, from start to finish, how we trace and do things. We have another friend that does a lot of work with us. And he does a lot of the 3D rendering.
I see.
So, but it's the Tuyo situation is mostly Sabrina and I. And Tuyo came out kind of like an experiment, man, because it wasn't. I was full time in advertisement for the past decade. I will call it building companies, because I end up building 3 companies for the group that I work with. When I say building, is from scratch. Yep. Procedures, producers, who we're working with, how we're going to sell it, and like all the internal design that requires a company to make it work.
Right. So all of this it's funny because sometimes when I'm interviewing people, maybe the road doesn't make sense. Like, we're here now, and how the hell did you get here? But no, all of this makes perfect sense. But
we haven't talked about 2008.
Yeah.
I was here. I'm here, 2008. I got this job, and we're getting together. I marry Sabrina, and the month after we get married, I get fired because there's no more work.
Oh, 2008. Oh, yeah.
So starting from there, it becomes a very, 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 very interesting pattern of like, I don't have my papers in full. I apply to everything and anything that I can. The legal limbo of my status is there, limbo. And then I was able to work in 3 amazing old school print garbage silkscreen studios that they're all dinosaurs in Brooklyn that they still do table printing. And then right after that, I start, because there was nothing, a good friend of ours through Sabrina's work connect me with another friend that became my boss, and I was a preschool teacher for 7 years.
That's a long chunk of time. I mean, did you ever think you were going to be teaching and out of the studio?
I had my master's in education through that.
When did you finish it up in Mexico City then?
It was the first online program that the university that I went.
Okay. And
because we were the first batch of kids that came out of that university, they're like, hey, we want to offer you a 60% discount since this is the first time that we offer this. So that was something that I could not let pass. And education is worth every penny, no matter what it is. And this was on education. So a lot of the structure and a lot of the way that I work in advertisement was understanding that you were teaching something to somebody. Yeah. You were selling, but you were teaching. Yeah. So it was pretty interesting to just have that background with advertisement and with art.
So we've got some art, and then we've got the teaching, and then we have the new role now with Buho, but I do want to talk about Hey Hey Agave real quick. Your love of agave, because this podcast has been hyper focused on Mexico, which is great, and mezcal and agave. Did your love of which happened first, your love of agave, or did you find it in the fact that you were interviewing all these personalities in that field?
My 10-year anniversary with Sabrina, I asked her that we needed to do something special. And, we have been going to Mexico City and visiting family, but it was not the Mexico that I wanted to show her.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more. And I was like, we need to go to Oaxaca. Like that's it. Like we have many choices, but you see that it was either Oaxaca or San Cristobal de las Casas in Chiapas. Like those were the two things. Like, because I knew that if we go north towards my family, it will end up being just family related again. And it's fine, but I needed her to see the other side of Mexico, the one that I love and miss. And so we end up in Oaxaca. We had my parents for the first week, and we stay in Oaxaca for almost 3 weeks. And after my parents left, we spent pretty much every other night in situ.
Mm-hmm.
And we built a beautiful relationship with Sandra and Ulises, mostly Sandra, but at the time, but it was that, and starting from scratch. I was not a mezcal drinker, not because I didn't want to, just because it wasn't something that you do in Mexico in the time that I lived there. Mm-hmm. You drink rum and cokes, and you have whiskey if you have money, and maybe brandy if you're kind of like faking it fancy. And that was it, vodka, rum, whiskey. Tequila was happening in front of me because my neighbor was from Jalisco, so I had access to plastic jugs of tequila, nothing bought. So that was my love for that. But it was a very specific situation. It will be just with my neighbor. It wasn't social.
Yeah.
At least not for me. And then when we come to Oaxaca, I have these vague memories of tasting mezcal in high school, because we went to Oaxaca when I was in the last couple of years of high school as a history trip that marked very much my way of thinking also, that it was kind of interesting. And as soon as I tried it, it was like this marvelous, this incredible, the texture, the flavors, the stories, the unlimited amount of information that nobody, at least at that point when we came back, and we came back with 7 bottles of mezcal each, and that lasted probably the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fine. And then that was the beginning of Tuyo. Like, what? We're drinking in these clay copitas we didn't like. We're drinking on the core copitas we didn't like. We have these glass copitas that they were the right shape, but were too little.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the right material, but they were, an ounce and a half. So it didn't really work. It was kind of clumsy and difficult to grab. They still make them in Oaxaca. I believe it's a fairly famous glass blower that does a lot of different kind of vasos for mezcal. And Sabrina ended up working with the artist that she worked with in a project with porcelain for the last couple of months. And I was like, is that clay? Like, how does that work? And just start talking. And, it's high temperature. It's almost glass, completely inert. It doesn't change flavors. It doesn't absorb anything. I was like, what are you talking? This is perfect. Like, do you think Michiko can do a copita for us? Yeah. And this was just for us. It was not even with the thought of doing a business with it. And she's like, do you have a shape in mind? And I was like, well, we can, start doing a few prototypes. And that was it.
Wow.
But that was the beginning of Tuyo, was looking for a solution and we look everywhere in the ceramic world, but I was like, I don't want glaze. I don't want to chip. I don't want it to, you spend, healthy amount of money, because, artists in the States, cost is different than artists in Mexico.
Oh yeah.
And it's just just a different way of approaching product. And I was like, we can do this. So we prototyped probably 4 or 5 different sizes. Shrinkage was one of those crazy stuff. Like you start looking around and it shrink like 15 and then 20 and 25, depending what we were using. End up shrinking a lot. So, the copita at the beginning looks like a ball, and then it shrinks down massively. If you have a logo that is an inch, it ends up being, super tiny. All kinds of very interesting things that just understanding material. But it became very obvious that there was no information for us here.
Right.
So sure, we're making something very cool, but then where is the mezcal information? Like we're drinking this amazing thing. I have to call Sandra every other week. Hey, what do you say about this? How does this work? Like all my information was basically just calling her on the phone and having these, 1-hour chats that we still do. And it became the obvious reason that we needed to do more research. We have friends here that they were part of the mezcal world. I was not neither in the restaurant, neither in the mezcal, neither in the booth. I was in the advertisement and printing world. So all this, my crew of people were not really part of the Mexican scene either. Like I kept myself a little bit up distance, just preference, drama-free. In many ways.
It is drama-free.
Drama-free in many ways. So I kept my distance. But then, through mezcal, I actually reconnected with a very much Mexican side of me. Because I was doing what a lot of very intense thoughts happen when you come to another country. You want to assimilate, you want to understand, you want to kind of lose your accent a little bit. You're trying to, write better, read better, all these kind of things. And what happens when you're with your people is like, nobody speaks fucking English. Like everybody's like, it's in Spanish mode. And now like, I need to clean my act in order to feel more comfortable around. There was the constant like, what are you saying? What's that? Because they didn't understand what I was saying, and it was highly frustrating, especially for somebody that speaks a lot. So it was interesting to just reconnect with that. So Oaxaca, Sandra, Ulises, we started talking, and the first person that we had in the podcast was either Tess or Dave. Let me see. Yeah, Tess. So Tess was one of those things that we opened Tuyo, and she's been in the industry more than anybody else that I know. Same as Dave Later, and probably Justin. And through these 3 people was the immediate connection with the mezcal community. Tess has been a pillar for our connection and communication with everybody. So she has been in a bunch of Hey Hey Agave, but starting with the first one, that it was just, hey, there's no information that we know. We probably were like the second or third podcast that it was in the system talking about this. We were the first one in New York for sure. And a lot of the big benefit is that, you have a lot of producers and owners and people in the mezcal industry to come to New York to connect with the distributors. Right. So at that point, it was like, well, you're here, and we started doing this live, the same way that you were doing Show the Beat, that it was only live, sitting in my house, bring your mezcal, let's have good time. And let's connect. That was the thing. It was not much of the interview. Not on my side. Sabrina, as you said, she is the one who put together most of the question. The theme, the thematic, if we wanted to have one, the pre-interviews, for each one of the things that you will see in Hey Hey Agave, there's a ton of photo. So that's my job. I do the photo research, retouch, organization, storytelling, and Sabrina will do the other side, that is like the writing, the questionnaires, the pre-interview. We do it together, but it's following certain topics that she do. but that's it. Like she is like the creative design on the edit and writing part, and I'm the image person on that same creative team.
Again, you're talking balance. That's a really good skill set to be offset, and you have your own talent. So again, this path makes a lot of sense. Meeting people in the mezcal world, you get a good hand on the pulse of design. And so this latest chapter is in where I've met you is through El Buho, which I wanted to thank you and Red for kind of coming into our homes here in Texas. And I'd consider it a beautiful launch where people love the mezcal. But tell me kind of how you fell into that opportunity.
It was Hey Hey Agave.
Yeah.
Straight on. Farron was in town. She just visited. Farron was friends with TJ and Red before us. I knew TJ and Red through Panorama Mezcal and hearing about Clara a little bit, but not much. I actually thought that it was an industrial mezcal.
Oh, really?
Just because the bottle didn't say artisanal anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we know about bottles that don't say artisanal? Is because probably they can't by law.
Yeah.
They omit that because if you can, you use it because you're paying for it in certain ways through certification and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of weird. And then Farron mentioned like, hey, producers from Santiago Matatlan for Buho Mezcal are in town. I just interviewed Betty from the Jimenez Mendez family. She's one of, she's a mezcalera from the family.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been talking about like the lack of women in the interviews, and that is just, sausage fest and all that kind of like Hey Hey Agave part, like that we wanted to include more girls and people that matter and people that have a voice and have a feminine voice and, all that jazz.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And this all makes sense. So sure. We have them here. The only problem is that they don't speak English. So okay, I'm sure we can do something, translate it. It's not. It's complicated. It's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
But the difficult part is not that the translation. The translation is easy.
Right.
That the actual information comes across as what they're trying or intending to say. That's nearly impossible. We haven't cracked it down. So that's why we don't have Sandra. That's why we don't have Ulysses. That's why we don't have, we have this pre-interview with Quish.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're beautiful people that they have so much important things to say, but I don't want to misrepresent any of this. And I'd rather not interview them.
You're right. I know you mentioned this in our tasting too. And do you have any plans to get those out in some form? Non-translated?
Not sure.
Okay.
Not sure. It has to be done right. Otherwise, I'm not interested in doing half-half. But with that, we met TJ in a more formal way. We talked for hours. I met the family, talked to Pepe, talked to Betty, talked to TJ, talked to Redford. Everybody sitting in the house. We're drinking mezcal. We have beautiful audio recorded. I met them. They met me. End of the day. Thank you so much. We will see you later. And probably a couple of months later, we are at Claro with Tess and Farron, and have a beautiful afternoon with TJ and everybody. And that was it. It stayed there. That was the end of that first encounter relationship, where we knew each other now. It's not that I can walk to Clara and hug my friend TJ and say, "How you doing, brother?"
Right, got it.
What's going on? And just start from there. And then I had a very, 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 very voluptuous 2018, 2019. The end of 2018 was horrendous work-wise. I was in a very toxic work relationship, and needed to get out. There was no way of fixing or nothing, and it was 10 years of my life. I thought that was the place that I was going to get old and, do more things and create more companies. And I designed a full line of eyewear. You name it, I did it. It was fascinating. Like the professional growth in those 10 years was incredible, but I left not too happy, and that was it. I needed to reinvent, and there's no need to. If you don't have anything nice to say, just stay on that line.
Yeah.
That's it. And then that full year, 2019, was pushing Tuyo, finishing all the photos, reinventing the voice. That's the push that you will see on Hey Hey Agave, that we were pushing one every month. Well done, well designed, well interviewed, all the photos. Like the photo documentation that we have on the page right now is insane.
Yeah, it looks great.
And the idea that people can come and research, and it's SEO friendly, and it will pop out if you're putting Elisandro. It will pop out if you put Scott Rosenman. It will pop out if you put, I don't know, Ryan from Ryan Toll, Salvador from,
La Luna.
So we have all the top dogs that are in the market, and they're here in a very human way that I love it. Like they're telling us their story, their notes behind it, and who they are, and that was it. That was the special growth, and then. End of 2019 happens. I was looking for another job. I got in a interview process of October, November, December, January, with Vice. I was applying for a very, very, very interesting job at Vice. I met fantastic people through the interviews.
Yeah.
But that didn't gelatin out. It didn't finish. Economy starting to get shifty. Coronavirus was very much present by January. Things were very strange. Nothing drastic yet. And the interview, process lasted too long, and I needed a job. I was like, this is, 2 years working, but it's not. We're not making the millions of dollars that you require, the thousands. Like it's a work in process. 2 years, a company that is growing and is really, really amazing, but it's not a full-time job.
Right.
Yet. Hopefully one day it will do something like that. So I start looking around, and in December, I get an email from Redford, like, hey man, thinking about you, just checking on the podcast, how you guys are doing. TJ mentioned that if you're not working anywhere, we should talk. And I was like, listen, information in front of us, being transparent. I've been in an interview process since October. I really, really want this job, but you're making me triple guess right now because I love the idea of being able to work with you guys.
Yeah.
It was it's a no-brainer, period. Like I will say, if I didn't have anything in that moment, I would say yes. And like, give me some time, give me at the end of February, end of January, and we talk. And that was it. By probably January 27, 28, like, I'm in, let's talk, let's do some numbers and see how we can make this happen. And the first formal interview was at Loncheria. Drinking a little mezcal with Oscar. We just got a bottle from In Situ in the mail. And 4 hours later, they're like, sure, this is what we're going to do. And then COVID hits.
I know, man.
So that was incredible because there was obviously there was very, very nervous times of all of us just trying to figure out what we were going to do. I don't think Red knew in full what I'm capable of. I kind of explained it a little bit, but I can do a lot of very different things well. And I know that I can do a few different things very well. And that is advertisement, photography, design, aesthetic, creating a voice, creating a narrative. Like I was the creative studio at the agency.
Right. Also, then they hire a powerhouse of all these things. And how are you feeling about, because COVID stopped it, but again, I'll go back and say we had a really successful tasting where a lot of people are really into Buho in Texas now. I mean, do you feel like you're able to make progress given almost everything's against you?
You know what? Nothing was against us. Like, there was nothing that I said, oh, fuck it, we can't do it. No. Yeah. Like, we redesigned. You saw the material. It looks great. There's a book that is really nice. That is part of the Oaxaca team. Developed a lot of the content from there. Lorena, we re-edited and redesigned, and all the branding comes through collaboration with the team. Something that I have to say, like, and you heard probably the sentiment of this is a family business, but it's a family business here too.
Yep.
So all the things that I do, and for the first time in a decade, because that was one of the heartaches that I have in the other work that I have. It was always this is what it has to be done.
Yeah.
It was never hey, let's talk about it. I have a better idea. Let's collaborate. No, there was a single hand saying this is what it needs to happen, and that was it. So the creative process pretty much vanished with that kind of thinking. And with Buho is completely the opposite. I have a wider network of very, very interesting thinkers. Mm-hmm. I have a Redford that can see patterns probably on the numbers and the business and the production and the other more ethereal side of Buho money-wise. But he can also relate to the family and the love that this happens.
Right.
Then you have a TJ that has this almost like Spider-Man sense of like taste and flavors and just chemistry and alchemy and an aesthetic that is very particular to him. He's a 90s baby too. And, you have this the Gremlins or the comics and all this kind of like very specific aesthetic that it was there. And then you have me that I'm also kind of like that. I love comic books, love graffiti, love street art, and all that, like the in between the three of us when we're talking and putting something together. But then you have Buho right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great fusion of things. One of the things that there's two more questions I want to ask you, one of which is an easy one, but I do, because I think we've come a long way, you and I, in terms of our relationship and how we understand each other in this industry. But I know, and I not to revisit this, but I know there were like allegations of certain things with Ulysses, which has been talked to death and all of that. And I know we disagreed on it, and even to the point where I wanted to get on the phone and understand who we are as people, But why I say that is, you said something in one of the tastings that I found particularly helpful. And I keep seeing territorialism and ownership, but then kind of blocking people in the States from having, a lot of discussion about mezcal and whose is it really? But you said something to the effect that it's ours if we choose to work together.
Yeah.
And this goes back to you talking about karma and stuff, but do you feel like it's getting a little contentious?
It's business, man.
Yeah.
When we talk about this, we're not talking about mezcal. We're talking about dollar signs and products and distribution and eyes on bottles but the reality can be very different when you start seeing certain patterns of certain things appearing or disappearing or talk or not talk. So that's what I was that, the phrase that I'm telling you is togetherness. Like the other way doesn't really work because it creates that. And the other thing is like, just, we are in a very specific time, at least in the States, understanding privilege, and understanding whiteness, and understanding all these things that was not conversation for anybody a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But you don't have to go that far. You can have that same conversations, or at least the same ideas with culture and other countries. Like we have the bigger chunk of the market. It's obvious. It's not a question. It's actually a fact. The most mezcal sell outside Mexico is here.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore, yes, there is a voice, but there's also the possibility of the abuse of the voice.
Great point. Well, and so to kind of tie this with a little bow, why I think it was important to mention it is because we got on the phone and we talked it out. We didn't continue to argue. You know what I mean? Like that was the main thing, is that we just came to just realize we're both people that love this thing and we needed to talk about it together.
And the important thing also, and I have learned after being in a place, that there was never an option. It was always a authoritarian yes or an authoritarian no. Mm-hmm. And that created a lot of that created a lot of stops where they were not needed, but they also created a lot of reactions that they were not needed. And what happened probably in many of these discussions that we have seen over, the internet, on social media, they're reactive, and they're reactive in a way that we're not used to it. Seeing things like this is kind of like, where is this coming from? What are you going to achieve with that?
Yeah.
Because what we achieved in a phone call was that we might agree or disagree in a few things, because that's pretty much a healthy way to understand things, that we don't have to think the same way. We have different approaches and different stories with different people. Mm-hmm. And therefore, it's very interesting to see that you can actually talk it out instead of just being on one side.
Yeah, it was vitally important. And I think that will be something that our relationship throughout the years predicates on, is getting on the phone and talking, because neither one of us are stubborn people. It sounds like, we could get there and we could talk about it, and we're very open. But so my last question for you, which is a little bit lighter, because I still have a bunch of the Buho on my nice work desk here that we're filming and shooting from. I've been really going hard on that Tempestate. I really, really like it. So I want to know, for you're drinking this Tempestate anywhere in the world, who might you like to have a drink with, living or deceased? Celebrity, artist, anybody?
It has been a special year. So there's a few people that I have in my mind too fresh, because I'm no longer going to be able to see them. But I think the one person that I know we relate in such a deep way is my great grandmother. And I never had the opportunity to know more from her. And I know I will, if I had the opportunity. So with her.
Yeah, that's
grandmother. It's mi abuelita Panchita.
Well, cheers to that. And it's been good getting to know you more, getting to hear this story. And when I'm in New York next, God only knows when that will be, and when you're in Austin next, whenever that may be, we will definitely enjoy a mezcalito or two. So, Gabriel, it's been good chatting with you, mate. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Riley. I will talk to you soon.
See you.
Well, there we have it. Gabriel of El Buho, Tuyo, Hey Hey Agave podcast. There's so many things that he's got his hands in. I'm kind of wondering what he doesn't do, and he does all this beautiful design work as well. And I would say one thing is that there was a few months back during this pandemic, everybody's like super hyper focused on every detail and disagreeing with each other. So I get that, but there was this, Virgilio thing, Ulysses from In Situ, and some, batches of mezcal that there was a lot of arguments about. But bottom line was that there was a ring of which people were in one corner or the other of the ring. And Facebook didn't help that conversation. Facebook distanced us further. And to get on the phone and actually chat with Gabriel about his feelings and some things that he'd called me and some things that I'd criticized, it was good. It was a very healing thing. So I guess The point is, if you have the opportunity to get on the phone with someone, even if you don't know them, but to attain clarity, to attain a better understanding where that person's coming from, that is a vital skill to exercise, especially now because it's much easier to double tap on your phone and bitch at somebody on Facebook. And I know this is stuff you hear all the time. But Gabriel, it's great to talk to you about your life, and I love the projects that you're working on. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how many times you've watched House on Amazon Prime, I suppose this is the third time. Or if you're thinking, man, Tim Roth, I'd love to get a whiskey with that guy, please keep dancing.